Hey there, welcome to episode 131 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, as usual. We are recording this at 2:06 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in the Greater Vegas area on Thursday, May 28th, 2026. We normally publish new episodes of FFS Talk on Thursdays, sometimes in the morning, sometimes not. So we're close enough. If you have not heard of the FFS Talk audio program, if this is your first time, well, hey, welcome. The FFS Talk audio program is intended to be a discussion, debate, argument, conversation, could be anything, around a particular topic and what works, what does not, and what we might do about it. To date, we have not had a guest to perform the other half of the conversation, debate, discussion, and so on. So these episodes, 131, are planting seeds of discussion for the future. We'll see how that works out. In the meantime, coming up with arguments or discussion topics, my half of them perhaps, is still a good exercise. It's allowed me to discover some things, ponder some things, and so on. And eventually, there may be the other half of these conversations. That's the goal. Today's title and topic, Do the Maths. And if you are not familiar with what FFS means, meet some Irish people. The maths say you can. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I will read to you. And the links for today's episode are the usual two channel links. They're for the show itself, nothing in particular for this episode, because, hey, if you want to search for maths, the internet is there for you. Or nowadays, your favorite chat client of an AI tool. So, the summary of today's episode then. Maths are hard for some and generally off-putting for more, even though having some idea that what the numbers are, is usually a good thing. We should all do the maths more often, or have our pocket supercomputers do it for us at the very least. I'm going to modify at the very, calling it audible. The links for today's episode, as usual, the FFS Talk homepage. There's some crazy noise outside. Hopefully that's not, it's getting picked up a little bit. It sounds like a water toy of some sort. FFS Talk homepage is at ffstalk.com, ffstalk.com. There's also the profile page linking everything at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo. You don't have to spend any money, don't worry. But I do have the freeform profile page there. I've had it there for 5 years and 2 months now. And that is where you will find links to all of my audio programs and other productions, any projects I'm working on. Not all, maybe not all. I should check and make sure. There are some affiliate links there if you care to, and they're for some of my favorite coffee beans and other products that I actually use. You can buy me a coffee if you want to. Any proceeds that come through this particular platform do go towards coffee or coffee accessories, which is how all the various productions and endeavors listed on that profile page happen. Powered by coffee, better living through coffee. The Buy Me an Update audio program used to be published exclusively at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts, hence the name. But that didn't last long. Now we publish it there first, and then 2 hours later, it gets published in the usual places through Spotify for creators. Am I a fan of Spotify for creators? That might be an entire episode. So the episodes become available in the usual podcast places. It turns out buymeacoffee.com is not the best place to publish a podcast exclusively, but it started there. Same goes with Coffee Solo, published at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. And it is at once the more challenging and more fun program to produce, I think, each week when I get around to it. Since it's unscheduled, I have to remember, oh, that's right, I should do an episode. FFS. So let's get on with the show so we can get on with the next show. Show your work. This is by the way, so it's what works, what doesn't, and what we can do about it, but I sometimes have a little preamble, and that's where we are. Show your work. This has been in the news or the air. Sorry. This has been in the news or on the air or somewhere lately that people find maths difficult, that one gender is better at maths than the other, but which one isn't? That teaching mathematics is all wrong and can be done better, and so on, and so on, and so on. Personally, I have found maths to be a challenge now and then, depending on how familiar I am myself with the material to which the maths are applied. Mathematics and mathematicians are a special bunch. No fault if if they are way beyond us in their conversations. But basic mathematics for the purpose of getting through life, these are the things we really should know. No, we are not going to do a math class today, but we really should know basic mathematics. And we should be able to teach these skills so that they will be available to everyone. And by the way, there's an old adage, if you understand something, you should be able to explain it to someone else. That's a fair baseline. 1 + 1 = 2. Why? You should be able to describe that. Because I said so. There was a time when having a calculator meant you were very wealthy. And then at some point they became solar-powered trinkets available for a quarter with a gumball included. Maybe you prefer HP calculators with the RPN or TI calculators. We're talking scientific calculators here, the big ones that still are a little bit expensive, or you might still have your abacus and slide rule handy. Some people still use an abacus, which is totally fine. All of these are fine. And more than ever, we all have a mobile device in our pockets with a substantial selection of calculating tools and specialized apps to perform specific calculations for us as well. Be sure to make use of those if you can, but it does help to understand what's going on. The challenge really becomes apparent when the need is not to understand the unit cost difference between two products on your grocer's shelves, but to interpret the information being described, perhaps with some gesticulation by a politician or a pundit, salesperson, maybe, or someone along these lines, attempting to make a case for your confidence in their assertions. No, really, this is the best deal. This is usually where we run into trouble or find ourselves in a hilarious video clip showcasing people who cannot do maths. What works? On an individual basis, going through the process of a calculation, understanding its limits and implications, will eventually lead one to an aha moment. Grasping a concept and how it can be represented and analyzed in the language of maths with its tools and methods is ultimately a learning experience that will return many times over on the time and effort invested. So that works. When you do the math, you become better at doing the math. When we make a habit of doing the math or showing our work sometimes, other people around us may be inspired by your comprehension and may learn something from you. Not kidding. You may get your colleagues to lean in and reach that aha moment for themselves. Like maybe maths aren't so bad after all. You ever find someone that says, I hate math. And you say, yeah, but all you have to do is that. Oh, okay. It can happen. The odds may be slim. You can calculate them later. Over time, complicated topics that might not get a properly detailed explanation, perhaps to hide something, or perhaps due to an assumption that many make that their audience won't understand maths. They won't understand maths anyway, so they try to keep it simple, perhaps. This can be troubling, but you and I can solve this for ourselves by collecting what we can, data and other assumptions and so on, researching whatever is available, and deciding whether the picture drawn, the impressions given are sensible and, well, it's honest. Are they being honest? That's the way it is nowadays. This is a great habit to get into, especially if this becomes a group activity, a basis for conversation and discussion, maybe debate, and can lead to greater understanding and even formulation of strong opinions about what is presented and what should be presented and perhaps considered. The witless crowd is the presumption in some cases, but we can know better, and we can give it back to them. Later at the end of this episode, I'll have some examples. The high-speed rail project in California was one such adventure where I raised my hand. I'll get to that. What does not work? So first things first, if you're going to do some maths, you need to check your work and try to confirm the calculations are correct. Some are easy. Is it 2? Is 1 + 1 2? Sometimes not. Well, what's 1,000 factorial? Get to work. Someone in your audience will do one of the things suggested previously. Maybe they'll check it. Maybe they'll quietly check it. Maybe they'll make some noise. That's me. That's the last one. They'll check it for themselves and may find you did not carry the 2, or maybe you tried to prove 1 equals -1 or something along those lines. Credibility may be on the line, and not doing the maths may seem convenient for a given audience or for reasons, those who practice to something. But not everyone finds maths difficult. Do the maths, find out. Something like that. I'm going to get some water here. Hang on. Way at the other end of the spectrum is overwhelming your audience with maths that are complicated and perhaps not entirely applicable. It is easy to throw in some jargon, equations, data tables, and more to frustrate the audience into simply accepting what you are saying. Maybe if you are unable to explain your concept with maths that can be explained to an audience that is reasonably interested in in the maths, what they represent, it is time to hang out at the dry erase board and work through it, then try again. Production by Street. Often we will see partial data, incomplete models. We will be provided enough information to hint at the explanation, but we might not be able to try it out for ourselves. With so many tools available for not only individual mathematical analysis, but for your own construction of animation and visualizations and tabulated data and charts and all manner of elements that can make the overall system clear or more clear. Providing broken or partially functional examples because of a lack of correct data or obscured functions and relations, anything that pretends to be useful but is not, is simply a bad luck. Don't do that. Enable maths for all. So yeah, really nobody wants to know the math, right? We can think back to, what was it? Not Independence Day. What was it? Freedom Day or whatever it was. April 2nd, 2025. None of that math made sense, and they hand waved it, and it still didn't make sense. We're talking tariffs, of course. What can we do about it? To reiterate and perhaps suggest an easy route to connecting people and data, most of us have a pocket computer on us most of the time, for better or worse, doing the maths for your audience so that they can consume its data and results, interact with it, and perhaps make use of it is rarely a bad idea. This does not apply to proprietary data or methods, trade secrets, and so on. That's a tricky proposition there. But for the most part, showing the work so others can join in and maybe the beginning of an additional ideation, maybe some inspiration. You just never know. If you put the math out there up front, maths, let's keep correct pronunciation. If you put the maths out there and people can convince themselves that what you are saying is correct, and then people who do that will then tell others, oh, the math does work. The maths do work. If that can take place, that's probably a win for you. So do it. But trying to pull a mathematical fast one when the numbers are out there is not a winning proposition. I think we all saw that on that day if we hadn't seen it already. And it's not just politicians. When we get to my example, I found it humorous at the time. The advent of AI would solve all of our problems if we were, in fact, in a sci-fi book or movie, perhaps. In reality, we are not yet at the point where we can trust every aspect of what our AI tools tell us. They're not all, if you're just using a large language model, it may not be doing any math. It may be describing some math that it read about, but it may not be actually doing any computation. You have to be aware of what's going on there behind the scenes in the implementation. Adopting a trust but verify attitude and checking the maths, becoming familiar with what the values should or could be, and questioning what AI tells us are all great habits. This may be motivation to learn how some mathematical models actually work. And learning is a good thing. Keep learning every day. It's a good idea. There are loads and loads of tools, educational resources, and hands-on methods to become familiar with all manner of mathematics. Three blue, one brown, 3 brown, 1 blue, 3 blue, 1 brown, I think it is a great. I could watch that guy all day. 3 blue, 3 blue, 1 brown. Check it out. So yeah, there are loads and loads of these. The Khan Academy, which I think is where the guy used to teach, and the list goes on. There's plenty of educational stuff out there to let you in on how stuff works. And hands-on methods, by the way, great. If you can interact with something, maybe it's a calculator, but if you can actually see the output of mathematics, Like, what is this mathematical formula telling me? And then seeing how it actually applies in the real world. Those are great ways to approach this. Some of the subject matter is completely practical for daily living with greater understanding of how the systems we depend on work, like how items are priced and so on. I mentioned the grocery store thing. I do that all the time. If you see two, like, is the bigger one worthwhile? Is the sale price actually beneficial? You can just look at unit prices. That's a really good kind of base life mathematical tool to have handy. Intellectual curiosity comes naturally to some, probably to all to some degree. Curiosity is a great place to begin or continue a journey of learning. I myself am a big fan. Hopefully you are as well. So yeah, never stop learning. Don't be afraid of math. That's not the big take home, but I mean, I literally just saw some YouTuber yesterday. Same thing. Oh, I'm horrible at math. I don't know math. I can't do math. The mathematics in question was not difficult. It just wasn't arithmetic, but it was not difficult. And having some idea can actually, it's possible. You don't have to understand, you don't have to bust out your trigonometry proofs. You don't have to derive derivatives. No, you don't have to use the original derivative model, which I think is, if I'm remembering correctly, the limit as x approaches infinity. No, delta x approaches 0 of x plus delta. No, what is it? X over x plus delta x. Is that what it is? Now I can't remember. But the way derivatives are derived is pretty straightforward. If I had memory, we got time. This was a quick episode. Derivative. Oh, there it is. I was so close. Sometimes it's a delta x, but here they're doing dx. So the derivative of a function is the limit of the limit as dx approaches 0 or delta x. The function of x plus delta x minus the function of x all over dx. So you take the function with some value, if you're going to do it numerically, function with some value, and then you add a small amount, and then you subtract the function of just the value, and you divide by the small amount. And as the small amount approaches 0, you end up with the slope of a line at that point. Only approaches 0. You don't want to have to deploy L'Hopital's rule or anything like this. So the take home is that on its surface is not difficult. And if you see a few examples of it, you think, oh, okay, now I see what's happening here. And a lot of people will do difference equations. So derivatives as a result of difference equations, they're different. It's not quite the same as continuous number calculus. But the bottom line is you can understand some of these things, and then you might think, oh, okay, it's actually not that hard. I do get it. So practical examples will go a long way for some people. Now, a couple of examples to ponder. Obviously, income taxes and tax policy, those are always in the news. The tax the rich, millionaires and billionaires certainly should be paying more taxes. Wait, what does that mean? Why should they not be paying their fair share? Well, there's an adage that's making the rounds now. Billionaires did not work to earn that money. Millionaires, that's different. You can make $1 million by working. You build an idea up and so on. Even Jeff Bezos, in his early years, he was driving a tremendous amount of creativity and so on. You do not make $1 billion by going to work every day. You are extracting your riches from the work of others and so on. So the fact that billionaires are capable of keeping all of their money, but they pay their fair share. Now, this is not intended to be political, but when you don't spin the math in favor of quote unquote fair taxes, when you say, well, I pay my fair share, I pay $1 billion in taxes. I prefer to think of taxation as a matter of how much you keep. So if somebody said, well, I make $50,000 a year and I pay $5,000 in tax, whatever it is, I don't have the tax tables handy at the moment. And by the way, progressive taxes, that eludes people. So being a little bit more clear about how that works might be helpful. Maybe tax brackets are a problem. Maybe it should just be a continuous progressive tax, right? For every dollar you make, you pay another penny. Or the tax brackets should be closer together with more percentages, maybe. People just look it up in the tax table anyway. The take home, though, I make 50,000 and I pay 1,000 or something. Well, I make 50 billion and I pay 1 billion. So that's fair, right? Well, I keep $49,000 and my cost of living is like $49,002. Oh, I keep $49 billion. That's a very different picture. So just throwing math at people, like the percent, well, I'm paying the highest tax. I pay 98% of my, nobody presents it as a progressive tax table thing. You're paying most of your taxes on the money above, what's the cutoff? Like 150, some reasonable amount of money. So most people who make a normal amount of money are paying a normal amount of taxes. Whereas, so when you hide the progressive tax tables and you talk about payment versus retention and sorts, you can present a different picture of reality. So it seems, oh yeah, you're paying your fair share. Well, I'm actually keeping most of the money that is printed. So income taxes and tax policy are an easy way to hand wave and to make these confusing numerical presentations. Well, a person making $38,000 a year is going to pay 28%. They'll throw these numbers around, and then fair share comes up quite often. So I think there's a better way to make that presentation. Like I said, somebody should go to a dry erase board and spend some time making an explanation that actually not only makes sense, but is not disingenuous. Would that be ingenuous? Grocery store price comparisons, I mentioned that. It's real, like you can do the proportion, so you can determine what the price of another item would be. The total price would be based on the unit price of some other item, so you can compare directly. That's one easy way to do it. But I really just all the time I'll say, okay, it's how many sheets of paper towel, how many ounces of something, and now some price tags, some shelf tags will print a unit cost. So it's 13 cents an ounce, or it's 25 cents per unit, whatever it is. I find those invariably useful every time and invaluable. No, they are specifically valuable. But yeah, being able to compare prices. Now, I'll give you an example where this was quite the opposite. This actually happened. I was at Target, the Target retail store, and they had their home cleaning supplies. And they had individual sponges. Say they were 50 cents. And they had 3 sponges packaged together for $2, and they were identical, right? So I took the 3 sponges and I said, these are on the shelf for $2, and they're actually $1.50 if you buy. And the person just looked at me and said, "Yep." So you can try to pull a fast one on people if they're not doing their math. I will admit that when we were in college, we would have social gatherings, and it was one person for $3. 2 together for $5, and 3 together for $10. Same thing. You get people not paying attention to think, oh, 3 for $2, that's a deal, because they're not doing that unit cost calculation. So sometimes it can be used for fun and profit to assume people are not going to do any math at all. Maths. High-speed rail calculations. This is the one I was referring to. So the community outreach meeting by the High-Speed Rail Authority, or whatever it was called. I lived in the Bay Area, so the train in question was going to pass through Sunnyvale, where I was living, and I happened to be living on the train tracks, almost literally. The easement was behind the backyard where I was living, so that was literally the train would be going right by, right? There was nothing except for some grass between the back of the place where I was living and the train tracks, right? So high-speed rail would be passing right through. So they, of course, wanted to have a community outreach meeting and meet with us. So they tried to describe the utility of the high-speed rail by talking about ridership. And they said, there's going to be this many trains, and it'll run every hour for whatever. So I took out my phone, I had my calculator app on there. And as everyone does, I actually have a HP calculator app on there. That's a different story. So I pulled up, I just did a quick calculation. And I said, so I have a question. the numbers that you're using here suggest that there will be, and it was something ridiculous, like 5,000 people on one train every 90 minutes or whatever it was. And they were like, well, we didn't do that. That's from the home office. We don't do the number. So they came up with those numbers, just passing it off. So the numbers they were talking about, the top line numbers, like, hey, it's going to be 100,000 people a week, or, some crazy large number. But when you actually broke that down, the bottom line was, these are not realistic numbers. So being able to do that, to ask those questions, can be valuable. High-speed rail is in a questionable state in California right now, probably because not only did somebody not do the accounting of costs correctly, because yipes, it's very expensive, but the utility of the high-speed rail, the ridership numbers and so on, may have been hand-waved a little bit. And so to be able to understand that, it's sort of like the tariff example, right? Somebody's going to figure that math out. They're not going to just accept what you tell them every time. High-speed rail calculations. Wait, I did that. Water levels in the desert. We in the greater Vegas area suffer from the Colorado River and bad water deals. Somebody didn't do some maths back then. So the water levels in a desert are important because they can get low and then people can't drink as much water, which they should always be drinking water all the time. And especially when there are lawns to water and golf courses to maintain. So here, they only report on water levels when they're low. Once they get above low, when they're back in sort of the, okay, we're almost going to make it, then they stop reporting on them. So they usually just talk about water levels. You'd really have to dig deep in there, but they do. The water district here in Greater Vegas does they do maintain water usage statistics per region, per probably a grid of some sort. So this part of town uses this much water on a daily or hourly basis, whatever it is. They don't make those numbers generally available. They should be publishing them in the big picture every single day. So when you show people the rates of change in a very visible way, you actually increase the possibility that they will understand what you're talking about. You don't have to do so in this case, you could do differences, right? You would be dividing sort of like the cost on the shelf, but you're dividing the change in water level over the time. And so you end up with this slope of a line, right? The rate of change of the water levels, always negative here in Vegas. But if you show those numbers in a visual way, you can actually impress upon people the need to turn that water off. I just can't let the water run while I'm shaving or brushing my teeth, or just because. Well, here's what's happening when every single person does that for 10 minutes. Right? So you can actually illustrate mathematical concepts in practical ways that have practical consequences. And I'd like to see that more. And finally, I think this gets a lot of attention. And I'll be honest, I do not have kids. I don't have kids learning Common Core with mathematics. Common Core curriculum in general is a little bit outside of my purview. But from what I've seen of Common Core mathematics, one of the things that really bothers people, because Common Core mathematics is a different way of teaching mathematics, is when they start teaching estimation. Like everything I've said today, if somebody was able to really comfortably estimate, then you would say, oh, okay, so I don't really need my calculator. I can just say that this divided by that times that minus that. That's pretty close. So when they teach estimation methods, people will post on YouTube or whatever. These have faded in popularity just because I think everybody has given up. But what is my kid learning? What are they teaching? How come they come up with 3 instead of 2.9, whatever it is? So some of the Common Core mathematics and estimation, I doubt very much that is a substantial part of the total curriculum. From what I've seen of Common Core, they actually teach different, sort of a different, it's not quite a visualization, but I mean, there are ways to teach mathematics. So you're multiplying left to right, different ways of doing long division, different ways of coming up with greatest common multiple, greatest common divisor. So there are different techniques and whatnot. So when you start bringing in different techniques of doing things that are different from the finger quotes here, old ways, that confuses people, because like, this is not how I was learning. I was taught to multiply right to left, and you carry the 1 and you carry the 2, and But if you multiply left to right and you do this and you break that number down and you do so and so, then so some of these look funny, but they're actually just different ways of doing the same mathematical operation. So this can be off-putting, but in fact, hey, if people can learn mathematics in new and unusual ways, but they come up with the right answer, and they know they came up with the right answer, we are a better society for it. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe somebody would want to debate Common Core, and that I don't know if I'd be able to properly answer. But from what I've seen, it just looks like a different way of doing mathematics, and not necessarily. It's not a conspiracy, from what I've seen. Maybe you know different. Who knows? That's where I'm going to leave it for today. I got 32 minutes on my timer here, so I'm going to say it's going to be closer to 29 minutes when all is said and done. I do truncate silence using some digital signal processing to remove quiet passages. That's some math right there. And you know what? DSP is just multiplying and adding for the most part. There's some other stuff, which also works for Bitcoin mining and for artificial intelligence. Those GPUs, they're the secret. It's all maths. I was going to mention why math versus maths. British people say maths as in mathematics, and American people say math as in mathematics. So, but that's an exercise left to the listener. Thanks for listening, speaking of, and thank you for checking out my other episodes of my various other audio programs. Remember, you don't have to spend any money, but if you can visit buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, you'll find links to all of those and more. Check it out. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.